When the service manager at the luxury dealership handed me that clipboard, my knees went entirely weak, and for a second, I genuinely thought I was going to faint right there on the polished marble floor. I looked down at the bottom line of the printed estimate, my eyes blurring as I desperately counted the zeros, praying that I was misreading the numbers. But the reality was cold, hard, and devastating. It read exactly $200,000. I looked up at the man in his tailored suit, my voice trembling, as I told him there had to be some kind of mistake, that this was just a car. But he only gave me this patronizing, sympathetic smile that didn't reach his eyes and told me that high-end precision engineering required high-end financial solutions. My mind immediately raced to my 7-year-old daughter, Lily, who was sitting at home with her grandmother, completely unaware that the one asset we had left to save her life had just been declared worthless. I stood there, a single father who had already lost his wife, holding a piece of paper that felt like a death sentence for my little girl, because that car was supposed to pay for the life-saving heart surgery she desperately needed. Was I wrong for what I did next, or did I do exactly what any desperate parent would do to protect their child? Tell me honestly in the comments if you would have given up right then and there, or if you would have fought back against a system that seemed entirely rigged to crush you. To really understand how I ended up in that showroom, holding a 6-figure repair bill, with tears welling up in my eyes, we have to go back to the very beginning, to a time when my life felt whole. My late wife, Sarah, was the absolute rock of our family, an incredible woman who possessed a rare combination of fiery independence and a deep, nurturing soul. Sarah also happened to have a profound passion for classic sports cars, a love she inherited from her father, and for years, we had shared a dream of one day owning a true masterpiece of automotive history. After a decade of hard work, saving every spare penny, and sacrificing vacations, we finally managed to purchase a pristine midnight blue 1997 Porsche 911 Turbo, the last of the air-cooled era, which was Sarah's absolute holy grail. We didn't buy it as an investment or a status symbol. We bought it because every time Sarah sat behind that wheel, all the stress of the world seemed to melt away, and her laughter would fill the cabin as the engine roared to life. But our happiness was tragically short-lived, because just 2 years after we brought that beautiful machine home, Sarah was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer, and within 6 months, she was gone, leaving me completely devastated and alone to raise our beautiful daughter, Lily. Losing Sarah tore a hole in my universe that I knew would never truly heal. But looking into Lily's bright, innocent eyes gave me the strength to wake up every single morning and keep moving forward. For 5 years, it was just the two of us against the world. And while we didn't have a lot of money, we had an abundance of love, and we kept Sarah's memory alive by taking the Porsche out every Sunday morning, just like we used to. Lily loved that car, calling it Mommy's spaceship, and as we cruised down the coastal highways, I could almost feel Sarah sitting right there in the passenger seat beside us, smiling down at her little girl. But then, the universe dealt us another cruel blow, when Lily started experiencing severe fatigue and shortness of breath during her soccer practices, leading to a series of doctor's appointments that culminated in a devastating diagnosis. The pediatric cardiologist told me that Lily had a rare, progressive congenital heart defect that had gone unnoticed, and she required a highly specialized surgical procedure that needed to be performed by a top specialist across the country. The cost of the surgery, including travel, specialized care, and post-operative rehabilitation, was an astronomical $150,000, an amount that my modest salary as a high school history teacher and our basic health insurance couldn't even begin to cover. I remember sitting in that sterile hospital consultation room, holding Lily's tiny, warm hand while she slept, feeling an overwhelming, suffocating sense of helplessness wash over me as I realized I didn't have the money to save my own daughter's life. I went home that night, walked out into the dark garage, pulled the soft car cover off the midnight blue Porsche, and wept openly against the cold metal, knowing what I had to do. Sarah loved that car more than almost any material possession, but I knew without a single doubt that she would want me to use it to save our daughter, because Lily was our greatest treasure. The market for that specific model had skyrocketed over the years, and a pristine, low-mileage 1997 Turbo was easily worth upwards of $250,000, which would comfortably cover Lily's surgery and give us a financial safety net for her recovery. The very next morning, with a heavy heart but a clear sense of purpose, I called the most prestigious exotic car dealership in the city, a place known for handling high-end classic European imports, and scheduled an appointment for a full pre-purchase inspection, so I could obtain a certified valuation and sell the vehicle immediately. The morning of the appointment was bright and crisp, and, as I buckled Lily into the front seat for what I knew would be our very last ride in Mommy's spaceship, she looked up at me and asked if Mommy would be mad that we were giving the car away. I choked back my tears, kissed her forehead, and told her that Mommy was the one who was making this happen, that she was watching over us and sending us the help we needed. I dropped Lily off at her grandmother's house, giving her an extra tight hug, and then began the 40-mile drive down to the high-end dealership, listening to the familiar, mechanical symphony of the air-cooled engine behind me. But about 10 miles away from the dealership, the car suddenly did something it had never done before. The engine gave a violent, heartbreaking stutter, the dashboard lights flickered erratically, and the RPMs plummeted as the vehicle lost significantly power. I managed to limp the staggering car onto the shoulder of the highway, my heart pounding in my chest as fear gripped my throat, but after idling roughly for a minute, the engine seemed to catch its breath, allowing me to drive the remaining distance at a painfully slow, agonizing pace. When I finally pulled into the immaculate, glass-fronted showroom lot of the dealership, the car was sputtering miserably, blowing a faint wispy trail of dark smoke from the exhaust, and coughing like it was on its absolute last legs. A sleek, perfectly groomed service advisor named Mr. Vance walked out to meet me, looking at my faded jeans and the rough-running car with a look of distinct, thinly veiled condescension. I explained the situation to him, telling him through a cracking voice that I needed to sell the car urgently because my daughter was incredibly sick and required a major medical procedure, and that the engine had just started acting up on my way over. Vance's demeanor shifted instantly from aloof to intensely focused, his eyes gleaming with a calculating look that I should have recognized as danger, but I was far too consumed by grief and anxiety to notice. He assured me that they would take excellent care of the vehicle, putting their top master technician on the diagnostic team, and ushered me into a luxurious waiting lounge, filled with leather chairs, gourmet coffee, and wealthy individuals who didn't have a care in the world. I sat in that lounge for 3 agonizing hours, unable to drink the coffee, unable to read the magazines, my hands shaking as I checked the time every 2 minutes, thinking of Lily and the ticking clock on her medical deadline. Finally, Mr. Vance re-entered the lounge, his face twisted into an expression of profound, exaggerated gravity, holding that fateful clipboard tightly against his chest as he approached my chair. He sat down opposite me, exhaled a long, theatrical sigh, and told me that he had the most unfortunate, tragic news regarding my late wife's vehicle. He explained that their master technician had discovered a catastrophic, internal mechanical failure within the engine block, claiming that a critical oil passage had collapsed, causing total internal starvation that had effectively destroyed the entire twin-turbo power plant and severely warped the transmission housing. He then flipped the clipboard around, showing me the itemized breakdown that totaled $200,000 for a complete engine and drivetrain replacement, using factory original, numbers-matching components sourced directly from Germany. My world completely shattered into a million sharp pieces right then and there, and I felt the air completely leave my lungs as I stared at that astronomical number, realizing that the value of the car had just been entirely wiped out. Vance leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a smooth, confidential whisper, and told me that because he felt so terribly sorry for my daughter's medical situation, he was willing to do something unprecedented. He said the dealership would be willing to take the useless, broken scrap metal off my hands as a gesture of pure goodwill, offering me a mere $10,000 for the entire car, just so I wouldn't have to pay the massive disposal and teardown fees. He placed a pen directly into my trembling hand, pointing to a line at the bottom of a waiver form, urging me to sign it immediately so they could process the cash payment and help me start getting Lily the help she needed. So that is the exact, horrific situation I was trapped in, standing on the absolute precipice of financial and emotional ruin. And I had to make a definitive choice that would alter the course of my daughter's life forever. Before I tell you the shocking truth of what happened next, I want you to pause right now, go down to the comments, and type out exactly what you would have done if you were standing in my worn-out shoes. Would you have signed that paper out of pure desperation just to get the $10,000, or would you have walked away? Take a moment to comment below, because I truly want to know if you think my next move was reckless or brave. As I stared at the pen in my hand and the slick expectant smile on Mr. Vance's face, a sudden, powerful wave of clarity washed over me, cutting right through the thick fog of my desperation and panic. I remembered Sarah, how she used to say that people who run expensive operations often rely on intimidation because they assume regular folks don't know any better. And I looked closely at Vance's eyes, noticing a desperate, hungry flicker of greed that didn't match his charitable words. I dropped the pen onto the clipboard, looked him dead in the eye, and told him that I wouldn't be signing anything today, and that I wanted my car rolled out to the front immediately, because I was taking it home. Vance's face instantly hardened, his polite demeanor completely evaporating, as he aggressively snapped that I was being completely foolish, reminding me that the car was a rolling hazard, that it wasn't safe to drive, and that I was actively throwing away the only money I would ever cease for it. I refused to back down, demanding my keys, and after paying an outrageous $300 diagnostic fee just to get my property back, I had to call a flatbed tow truck to haul the silent, wounded Porsche all the way back to my house. When the tow truck dropped the car off in my driveway, the sun was already setting, and as I rolled the vehicle into my cramped, poorly lit garage, I felt an incredibly heavy weight pressing down on my chest. I went inside, checked on Lily, who was happily coloring a picture of a rainbow, and I hugged her so tightly that she complained I was squeezing her like a bear, completely unaware of the storm raging in my mind. That night, after she went to bed, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with my head in my hands, looking at the medical documents, knowing that the deadline to secure the specialist's surgical slot was only 2 weeks away. I realized that I couldn't afford to be helpless, and while I wasn't a professional mechanic, I had spent my youth working on basic lawnmower engines and old trucks with my dad, and I knew how to research. I grabbed my laptop, opened up various specialized online Porsche enthusiast forums, and began reading everything I could find about the specific engine symptoms our car had displayed on the highway. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, deep within an old, archived thread from a specialized European mechanic forum, I stumbled across a post that made my heart stop. The post described the exact same symptoms: a sudden violent engine stutter, flickering dashboard lights, a massive drop in power, followed by a rough, smoky idle. The forum expert explained that corrupt dealerships frequently used these exact symptoms to scam unsuspecting owners of classic 911s, claiming the entire engine was destroyed when, in reality, the issue was incredibly simple. Because these specific vehicles utilize a highly sensitive, old-school electronic engine management system, a simple failure in a tiny, minor electrical component could completely disrupt the engine's timing, causing it to run horribly and mimic a total mechanical collapse. That tiny component was the primary DME fuel pump relay, a small plastic cube located inside the main fuse box that regulates the electrical current flowing directly to the fuel injectors and the engine computer. The forum post explicitly stated that when this specific relay begins to fail due to old age or heat stress, it intermittently cuts the electrical signal, causing the engine to misfire violently and enter a protective limp mode that makes it sound like a broken tractor. The most shocking part of the post was the price of the actual replacement component. A standard, factory-original German-made DME relay cost exactly $14.50 online. I sat there in the quiet dark of my kitchen, a spark of intense hope igniting in my chest for the first time in weeks, realizing that the dealership might have been trying to completely swindle me out of a $250,000 vehicle. I immediately went online, found a reputable overnight auto parts distributor, ordered the $14 relay with express shipping, and spent the rest of the night praying that this forum post was right, and that the dealership manager was a liar. The next afternoon, a small cardboard box arrived on my doorstep, and my hands were shaking so violently that I could barely open the packaging to reveal the tiny black plastic relay that held the entirety of my daughter's future inside it. I grabbed my flashlight, walked out to the garage, popped the front hood of the Porsche, and located the main fuse panel, nestled deep within the left side of the trunk bay. I referenced the diagram, pulled out the old, dusty factory relay that had been sitting in that socket for nearly 30 years, and carefully pushed the brand new, $14 part into place, until I heard a clean, solid click. I walked around to the driver's side, opened the door, and slid into the leather seat, staring at the ignition key while my heart battered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I turned the key, the dashboard lights illuminated brightly, and as I turned it the rest of the way, the engine cranked over once, twice, and then suddenly roared to life with a fierce, deafening, absolutely perfect mechanical scream that echoed off the garage walls. I sat there in absolute disbelief, tears streaming down my face as I gently revved the throttle, watching the RPM needle sweep flawlessly up and down the gauge without a single hesitation, a single stutter, or a single puff of dark smoke. The engine wasn't destroyed, it wasn't broken, it was running more smoothly than it had in years, completely exposing the horrific, calculated lie that the dealership had manufactured to steal my car. Those monsters had deliberately preyed on my vulnerability and my daughter's illness, trying to trick me into signing away a pristine automotive treasure for practically nothing, just so they could flip it for a massive profit. A profound, burning anger replaced my fear, and I knew that I wasn't just going to let them get away with it. But first, I had to secure my daughter's survival. The very next morning, I drove the flawlessly running Porsche to an independent, highly respected vintage car appraiser located 2 towns over. A man who had no affiliation with the corrupt dealership. He spent 4 hours meticulously examining every inch of the vehicle, checking the serial numbers, testing the compression, and verifying the paint depth, ultimately handing me a certified appraisal document, valuing the car at an incredible $275,000 due to its exceptional, unrestored condition. Within 48 hours, through a specialized classic car broker, recommended by the appraiser, the vehicle was purchased by a private collector who deeply appreciated the car's history and paid the full amount via an immediate wire transfer. Holding that bank receipt showing a balance that could easily fund Lily's medical care was the most profoundly liberating, emotional moment of my entire life. And I fell to my knees in the living room, weeping with gratitude because I knew my little girl was going to be completely safe. With the financial funds fully secured, I immediately coordinated with the medical team. And 2 weeks later, Lily underwent the complex heart surgery at the specialized children's hospital. I spent 12 agonizing hours in that waiting room, but when the surgeon finally walked through those double doors, with a tired smile, and told me that the operation was a flawless success, and that Lily's heart was completely repaired, I felt a weight lift off my soul that I had been carrying for years. Lily recovered with astonishing speed, her cheeks returning to a beautiful, healthy pink color, and within a month, she was running around the backyard with more energy than she had ever possessed in her entire life. But while my daughter was safe and healing beautifully, I still had one final piece of unfinished business to take care of regarding the corrupt dealership that had tried to destroy us. I contacted the State Attorney General's Automotive Fraud Division, providing them with a mountain of irrefutable evidence. The original $200,000 written estimate from the dealership, the independent certified appraisal, proving the engine was pristine, and the $14 receipt for the relay that fixed the entire issue. It turned out that the state investigators had already been quietly looking into that specific dealership after receiving several complaints from elderly owners who had sold their classic cars for pennies. After being told their engines were completely ruined, armed with my comprehensive documentation, the State Fraud Unit launched a massive sting operation, executing a surprise raid on the dealership that uncovered a systematic, organized scheme orchestrated by Mr. Vance and his top manager to falsify diagnostic reports and illegally acquire high-value classic vehicles from vulnerable owners. The aftermath was absolute poetry. The dealership was slapped with millions of dollars in punitive fines. Their corporate franchise license was permanently revoked. And Mr. Vance, along with 2 complicit technicians, was criminally indicted for grand theft and corporate fraud, facing significant prison time. I didn't care about their downfalls nearly as much as I cared about the fact that they could never prey on another desperate family again. Today, when I look at Lily running across the grass, laughing under the warm sun, I don't regret selling Sarah's beautiful midnight blue Porsche for a single second, because a machine, no matter how rare or beautiful, can never compare to the priceless value of a child's smile. Sarah loved that car, but she loved our daughter infinitely more. And I know that somewhere out there in the universe, she is incredibly proud of how a father's love and a simple $14 plastic part managed to save our little girl's life. This journey taught me that no matter how terrifyingly dark the situation appears, and no matter how powerful your adversaries seem, you must never allow desperation to blind your intuition or crush your willingness to fight for the people you love. Please hit the like button right now if you were standing on my side through this entire crazy journey. And make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss another deeply personal, heartwarming story of justice and survival just like this one. I would love to read your final thoughts on this whole incredible mess, so please drop a comment below and tell me how you feel about the dealership's ultimate downfall. Thank you all so much for listening to my story today. Stay safe out there, and I will see you all in the very next story.